I've had no training for this. Oh, and spoilers. Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes, I talk movies all day, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens, because after Disney paid George Lucas $4 billion for the franchise, they decided to make Star Wars movies the same way they make toy merchandise, by using forced child labor in Chinese sweatshops to churn out as many products as possible and hope that no one notices the atrocious work conditions. Allegedly. Anyway, how this works is that I'm going to go through the movie, point out all the reasons I can find as to why it's trash, and then at the end, drop a few final thoughts. So the movie starts off with making you read. How you gonna go spend $4 billion on a movie series but you can't spend a little extra something to get someone to actually act out the scenes? Anyway, Luke Skywalker's buggered off. The First Order and Leia are both looking for him. Now I guess the First Order are the bad guys or whatever, but you'd think his own sister would respect his boundaries and personal space. Besides, isn't Leia Force sensitive and in touch with her feelings? She could have just used Force telepathy and found him real quick. This movie could have been like 2 minutes, max. Anyway, Leia sends her most daring pilot on a secret mission to find an old friend. First of all, why send your most daring pilot? I mean, shouldn't you send your most daring pilot and spy? The pilot to get them close enough to Jakku, and then the spy can do all the sneaking around from there. And B, who is this old ally? Apparently he's known Leia since her princess days, so why is this the first time we're seeing him? Was he just hiding all this time? While Leia is fighting for her life in episodes 4, 5, and 6, this guy's nowhere to be found? Some friend. Also, secret mission? Who's this mission secret from? I mean, surely they're not telling the First Order about their other missions, right? Anyway, the First Order show up, because that's what happens when you don't send someone who's more skilled at being evasive, and then Poe tries to run away with BB-8. But this scene is interesting because FN2187 is starting to have second thoughts right after his friend gets killed by Poe Dameron. Poe Dameron killed FN2187's best friend, who, I don't know, maybe he was also having second thoughts about the First Order as well? But now we'll never know because he was gunned down in cold blood by Poe Dameron. So this old friend of Leia's, he saw clearly that Kylo brought death to the village, so why didn't he offer to play a game of chess? Obviously that works the first time. The way Kylo stopped the blaster mid-shot and rendered Poe immobile, this movie just started and they're already showing Kylo to be on some next level that we ain't seen before. Man, it's gonna take someone really well skilled and knowledgeable to bring him down. So not only are you gonna disobey a direct order, you're really gonna stand there staring at your boss? Also, I want to point out that in the opening scene, the stormtroopers have pretty good aim. So we know that FN2187 disobeyed an order and has been acting out of line for a minute. And let's keep it real, Phasma and the rest of them probably know that too. But even still, rather than reprimanding him, Phasma tells him to submit his blaster for inspection. She's given him a chance here. And she doesn't even shoot him for taking his helmet off without permission. If that was Darth Vader, he'd be dead already. And apparently the stormtroopers don't take their helmets off very often, yet Phasma still makes an effort to remember his face. I'm just saying, as far as bad guys go, this place seems like they at least provide a good working environment. But FN2187 can't even look at Phasma when he's talking to her? Now that's just rude. When we're introduced to Rey, she's shown scavenging parts from an old spaceship, which establishes with the audience that she's an expert pilot, swordswoman, hand combatant, and highly skilled and knowledgeable with the Force. Oh, and can understand Wookiee, droid beeps, and any other language that might come up later. Anyway, Rey sells her parts to the dude at CEX and gets offered 1/4 portion, and going by the look on Rey's face, I'd have to assume that's not a lot. Here's the thing though, surely this isn't the first time Rey sold parts to Unkar, so she really shouldn't be surprised by the low offer. Either go somewhere else or accept that's the best you're gonna get and deal with it. But to be fair, all good heroes have flaws, so I guess Rey's flaw is an inability to negotiate a better deal. Hold up. Oh wow. Did they have a woman take a lower pay? I heard this movie is supposed to be woke, and yet here they are encouraging the gender wage gap? Wow. So Rey rescues BB-8 from Tito, who was probably gonna sell him. But why? Rey don't know BB-8, but apparently she knows Tito, yet she's gonna stop him from doing something that she literally just did herself? Wow. The white privilege in this scene is peak. And by the way, if you watch this movie with the subtitles on Disney+, they refer to the way Tito speaks as alien dialect. How is it an alien dialect? They're on their home planet. Are you dumb? BB-8 ends up following Rey, but why? BB-8 is supposed to get that map piece back to the Resistance. Why follow a complete stranger? Sure, she helped it out, but that don't change the mission. Kylo Ren tells Poe that he had no idea they had the best pilot in the Resistance on board. Okay, but who told Kylo Poe is the best pilot? Did Poe tell him that? Because if he did, a little bit arrogant. Also, Kylo then says, "What you did with map," which just seems like an odd grammar choice to use all of a sudden. Rey is offered 60 portions for BB-8 and after a short deliberation decides not to sell. But why? She don't know BB-8. This movie could have been like 20 minutes, max. Did BB-8 and Rey really bond that much during their trip into town? Because all we know is that they told each other that they're both waiting for someone. Was that it? Was that what they bonded over? Because BB-8 could wait for someone with Unkar while Rey put 60 portions in her pocket. That's a win. FN2187 was able to walk into the room where Poe was held, tell the guards that Kylo Ren wants him, and then walk out with Poe with no issue. But not that long ago, FN2187 disobeyed an order, took his helmet off without permission, was told to submit his blaster for inspection, which I'd have to assume resulted in them saying his blaster is fine, and had to report to Phasma's division. So, after all that, they still let FN2187 wander around the complex unattended? They must really trust their workers. And speaking of trust, FN2187 breaks Poe out, but at no point does the issue of trust come up. How does Poe know he's not walking into a trap? And how does FN2187 know that Poe ain't gonna kill him as soon as they get out like he did his best friend? There's a lot of trust just freely given out, and we're supposed to just accept that two people that don't know each other from opposite sides of the war became BFFs in less than a minute. Okay. Anyway, when they steal the TIE Fighter, it turns out the TIE Fighter was tied down, but they managed to disengage the cable from inside the craft. Now, I ain't no security expert or nothing, but shouldn't that be the type of thing that can only be done from the control center? Yeah, this place might be a little too trusting. Also, I just realized that FN2187 is kinda like Darth Vader. Darth Vader was a white man in a black suit, FN2187 is a black man in a white suit. They both switched sides and had no issue with killing their own people, so yeah.
What's your name?
FN2187.
Well, I ain't using it. Finn, I'm gonna call you Finn.
Wow. Did they just have a white man tell a black man that he doesn't want to use his given name and is just gonna call him something else? I heard this film is supposed to be woke, and yet here they are encouraging the disrespect of names from different cultures? Wow. Anyway, without checking the registers, Kylo knew that it was FN2187 that helps Poe escape. I'm just saying, for bad guys, they really do a good job of remembering people. You know, for something that's been lying in a crashed, burning spacecraft, Poe's jacket is awfully clean. Finn takes off the stormtrooper suit and litters the desert with it. But is that what he was wearing underneath? No wonder he's always sweating. But the bigger question is, how did he fit a whole different pair of shoes inside that suit? Finn was running over to help Rey, which is what is called benevolent sexism, because from where Finn was, there's no way he could have known who was the aggressor. But anyway. Wow! Did they just have a white woman chase and attack a black man with a stick because of an unqualified thieving accusation? Wow! So remember the secret mission Poe was on? Yet both Poe and BB-8 out here just telling everyone about it? At this point, it should be more than clear to Finn that Rey can take care of herself. Plus, she's made it very clear that she don't want him holding her hand. So Finn constantly grabbing her? That's harassment. But it's funny how she's got all that smoke for Finn but had nothing to say when Unkar lowballed her on the portions. Wow. After Rey and Finn were getting shot at, Rey asks BB-8, the robot, if it's okay. But then right after they get blasted from the airstrike, when Finn gets up, the first thing he does is ask if Rey is okay. He got knocked out. and he is asking if she's okay, when twice now she hasn't cared about his well-being. She's supposed to be the hero of this thing, right? So after the quad jumper got blown up, Rey and Finn ran into the Millennium Falcon, which apparently hasn't flown in years. So why was the entrance ramp down? Did Unkar just leave the ship out in the open with the door open when apparently you don't even need keys to turn it on? Are you dumb? Also, in the time it took Rey and Finn to run into the Falcon, get set up, and eventually take off, none of the stormtroopers were able to blow it up? What happened to their aim? All of a sudden, Kylo Ren gets bad news about BB-8 escaping and then destroys his office with a lightsaber. Earlier in the movie, they made this guy look like a real badass, and now he's throwing temper tantrums in front of his subordinates? Darth Vader would have force choked the messenger to death already. So what happened? Was there some kind of revolt? Did the Grey Jackets unionize then go on strike to demand safer work conditions? To be honest, that kind of makes sense. So Rey gets annoyed at Finn for picking up the wrong kind of tape, but to be fair, there are a lot of different types of tape, so rather than getting annoyed, why don't you just say the yellow one and be done with it? Are you dumb? You know, Finn's character seems a bit fun. There's a cool kind of freeness about him. But why? All this time with the First Order, would he really know enough about the outside world to be asking about a boyfriend? So either the First Order really do look after their staff, I mean, relatively speaking, or the Stormtroopers found a way to access information about what's other things happen in the galaxy that they're not being told about, and that means Finn is almost certainly not the only Stormtrooper wanting to break free. But we're not going to consider that, let's just kill them anyway. Also, seems kinda odd that Rey knew the ship hadn't flown in years, knew the history of theft it went through, knew about the Kessel Run, but didn't know they were actually in the Millennium Falcon. But it's probably worth pointing out that Rey knew it was Unkar that put the compressor on the ignition line and not one of the other thieves, and that the compressor puts too much stress on the hyperdrive, which means she's been in that ship before and has a familiarity with its workings, which could explain how she was able to fly it with almost no issues. Bilatik and Kanji Club both lent 50,000 to Han Solo, even though he has a history of not delivering with both of them. Are they dumb? So Bilatek gave the order to inform the First Order that BB-8 is on board the Millennium Falcon, but then it was Supreme Leader Snoke that told Kylo Ren that BB-8 is with his pops. Now since Hux was in the same room as them, I think it's safe to assume that Hux didn't tell Snoke about BB-8. So who else has access to Snoke to give him the news about BB-8? Or did Snoke use the Force to find out? Because if Snoke is that strong with the Force, then this movie didn't need to happen at all. Also, why is Snoke's FaceTime hologram that big? Just out here giving people neck cramp for no good reason.
Are you offering me a job?
It wouldn't be nice to you. Doesn't pay much.
You're offering me a job.
Wow. Did they just have a woman get excited about being offered a job where she won't be treated well or paid properly? Wow. Anyway, Han takes Finn and Rey to a bar to get a clean ship for BB-8. But surely Han should have known there would be bounty hunters looking for BB-8 there. Like, dude, did you not watch episode 4? And speaking of not watching the previous movies, I'm not sure Kylo Ren watched any either. Kylo prays to his granddaddy Vader to show him the power of the dark side and he'll finish what he started. But the thing is, Vader ended by going back to the good guys, so why would his ghost be helping Kylo do dark side business? Plus, shouldn't the fact that Vader never appears to Kylo in Force Ghost form be proof enough that Vader don't want nothing to do with him? You see, if Kylo bothered to watch the original trilogy, that would be obvious. Also, I guess this means that at some point, Kylo Ren desecrated a dead body. So Maz Kanata looks into Finn's eyes and says he has the eyes of someone who wants to run. Finn then replies, "You don't know a thing about me," and then proceeds to talk about why they should run. So she does know something about you? Also, Finn says that Maz Kanata doesn't know the First Order like he does, which may very well be true, but kind of presumptuous when talking to someone who's over 1,000 years old who's literally just told you she's seen evil in many forms. Also, anyone else think it odd that when Rey went after Finn, they stopped to talk with Rey standing on an elevated platform? I mean, you really couldn't just take a few more steps so you can both be on even ground? Finn tells Rey that like the other stormtroopers, he was taken from a family he'll never know and raised to do one thing. Knowing that, the fact that he felt no kind of way about killing the other stormtroopers? Wow. They had a black person stolen from his family by white people, forced to work for free, and when he finally emancipated himself, he doesn't care about the others who are still trapped? Wow. Anyway, Finn tells Rey that she looks at him like no one ever had. Yeah, she looked at you like you're a thief. After Finn leaves, Rey goes wandering around someone else's property because she heard voices. Thing is, why would Maz Kanata keep Luke's lightsaber in a place where anybody can go to? Not even a box it was kept in had a lock. So the real mystery is, how was it still there when so many crooks frequent that establishment? Anyway, during Rey's intergalactic LSD trip, we see who is presumably little girl Rey, her parents abandoning her, and Unkar taking her. And if that is true, then why would Unkar be shortchanging her on the portions? My theory is, Unkar was taking care of this abandoned kid, teaching her to fight, pilot, use the Force without realizing, and understanding different languages, letting her play around in the Millennium Falcon and just generally being good to her. But then over the years, Rey became so ungrateful and so entitled that eventually Unkar kicked her out and started giving her crappy portion deals. Anyway, Maz Kanata tells Rey that whoever she's waiting for is not coming back. 1, you can't know that, and B, that is so manipulative. Clearly Rey is in a vulnerable state right now, and little miss I've seen the same eyes in different people should know that this is not the time to be pushing an agenda. Also, Maz Kanata tells Han, Chewie and Finn that she kept Luke Skywalker's lightsaber locked away.
So that was a fucking lie.
I saw an internet comment once where they referred to this weapon as the anti-son of a bitch stick. As far as I'm concerned, that's what it's called. Kylo uses the Force to find out that Rey had seen the map. But why not extract the map out of her brain right there? Then he could have just killed her and this movie could have been like an hour and 20 minutes, max.
It is very doubtful that R2 would have the rest of the map in his backup data.
Okay. Anyway, so Kylo took Rey back to base and waited for her to wake up before trying to get the map out of her brain. Are you dumb? Bro, you could have been on your way to Luke already. Instead, you just sitting there doing Edward Cullen impressions. Rey was able to resist Kylo trying to get in her head, and also was able to use the Jedi mind trick to escape. I know a lot of people saw this as an unexplained plot convenience, but I hope by now people see this for what it really is. Further proof that Unkar plots trained her well.
Confirms Finn's report. They've somehow created a hyper lightspeed weapon built within the planet itself.
Oh, so that's what happened to Al from Home Improvement. How did he go from DIY expert to member of the Resistance? I want to know that story. Finn says Starkiller Base uses the power of the sun. I think he means it uses the power of a star. If it uses the power of the sun, they can only fire it once. Anyway, they said Starkiller Base is not like the Death Star, but when they come up with a plan to destroy it, it's exactly what they did with the Death Star. I'm not sure any of them watched the previous movies, to be honest. One of the troopers tells Kylo that a sense was triggered in Hangar 718 and they're searching the area for Rey. First of all, you don't need to tell him that. Report when you actually have her. And B, sensors? So they don't have security cameras? They had security cameras in the prequels. So what, did they go backwards in technology? When Han finds out that Finn doesn't know how to disable the shields, Finn says, "We'll figure it out. We'll use the Force." To which Han replies, "That's not how the Force works."
You will remove these restraints and leave this cell with the door open.
I will remove these restraints and leave the cell with the door open.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly how it works. You know, part of me kinda wishes that Phasma refused to take the shield down and call their bluff on if they were gonna kill her or not. This scene just seemed too easy. There's a theory that Han actually killed himself because he knew that would get Kylo closer to Snoke and then Kylo could kill Snoke. It's an interesting theory, but in any case, this is a really good scene because it shows how truly conflicted Kylo is, and whether Kylo killed Han or Han killed himself, afterwards we can see that Kylo's purpose becomes clear to him. Speaking of purpose, can Rey and Finn make their mind up on who gets to wear the jacket? Kylo force knocks Rey back against a tree and Finn goes to check on her. Kylo had a clean opportunity to kill them both, but doesn't. During the lightsaber fights with Finn, Kylo could have just used the Force to knock him down too, but doesn't. You know, maybe that Han killing himself to get Kylo closer to Snoke theory is correct, because either Kylo is secretly a good guy, or he is mad incompetent, bro. Finn died in this scene. Avengers did it better. During Kylo and Rey's lightsaber fight, Rey takes a moment to gather her Force senses. Kylo could have killed her! Okay, so Rey was up against the edge. She ducks under and in front, and now Kylo has his back to the edge. So where did all that land behind Kylo suddenly come from? And oh, how convenient, the ground just parted right in between. What are the odds? Apparently Kylo Ren's training was incomplete. I guess that explains a few things, but maybe teaching your students to not miss so many blatant kill opportunities should be higher up on the lesson order. Anyway, not only did Finn not die, his jacket isn't even damaged, so the lightsabers can cut through trees but not leather. Matter of fact, is this a jacket of invincibility or something? I know a lot of people complain about the hug between Leia and Rey, saying it felt out of place. I disagree with that. They're both Force sensitive, they both had a connection with Han Solo, and they both have a connection with Luke. So even though they hadn't met, on a midichlorian level, they kinda already knew each other.
R2-D2 may contain some much needed good news.
Tell me.
So R2-D2 did actually have the rest of the map? All that time? And said nothing? In fact, the piece that BB-8 had was just a small bit, which means had R2 said something earlier, they could have sent people out to search for Luke in the missing area. In fact, didn't Kylo say that they had the rest of the map, they just needed that small bit, which means they could have sent people out to search for Luke in that missing area. I swear, this whole movie didn't need to happen. R2-D2 getting payback for all those times they told him to stay with the ship. I mean, I can appreciate the pettiness, so...
We'll see each other again.
Wow! Did they just have somebody violate another person's personal space when they're unable to give consent? Wow! The movie ends with Rey, R2 and Chewbacca going to find Luke. Rey goes off on her own and finds Luke staring out into the ocean because, I don't know, probably don't have a TV. But a few things. Rey stands maybe about 20 meters away when holding out the lightsaber. I mean, you only traveled half the galaxy, is a few more steps really gonna kill ya? Also, Rey says nothing to him, just holds out the lightsaber. I mean, I know they probably got the Force connection as well, but still, when someone leaves home, tells no one how to find them, probably doesn't want to be found, words might be useful in this scenario. And why Rey? I mean, yeah, Force connection, blah blah blah. But bottom line, Luke don't know her. Had all three of them went? Maybe he won't be so mad he got interrupted while trying to take a piss in the sea. Alright, so before I get into my final thoughts, if you liked this movie, check out these movies. They're all films that were massively hyped to be amazing, but ended up disappointing audiences. Thing is, in my opinion, these films are nowhere near as bad as people make them out to be. Except for Batman vs Superman, that one is actually terrible. So let's talk about The Force Awakens. So my personal feelings after seeing this movie for the first time was that it's okay. Has some cool action moments, some cool dialogue, and a passable story. It was okay. Problem was though that this movie became so politicized that saying it's okay was pretty much admitting that you hate women. So let's get into that. One of the biggest discussion points to come out of this was about Rey and whether or not she's a Mary Sue. And for those who might not know, a Mary Sue, or Gary Stu for dudes, is a character that has no real flaws or weaknesses. They're never really challenged and can pretty much do what the plot needs them to do when the plot needs them to do it. Kind of like playing a video game on easy mode, with an infinite health cheat and a game guide. Now, does that describe Rey? Yeah, it kinda does, but also not really. I mean, to be fair, the film doesn't do a good job of explaining much, and perhaps that's deliberate to keep the character and her past vague until necessary, but there are explanations. Rey is a scavenger that has to fend for herself against other scavengers and any other would-be opportunist. Learning to fight and defend yourself kinda comes with that. Also, being a scavenger means she's in and out of old spaceships all the time, learning which parts to look for that could fetch a higher price. And Rey does mention that she's flown before, so being able to fly the Millennium Falcon might not have been that much of a stretch. And you know, it's not like she flew it smoothly right away. Matter of fact, Rey probably killed some people. But anyway, Kylo's able to tell that Rey is naturally strong with the Force but hasn't been trained to use it. So that, along with her scavenger background, it's not that unthinkable that the Jedi mind trick scene could have been instinct. So the fact that Rey was able to handle the situation she was in wasn't just out the blue, it does actually make sense. She's practically been training for this her whole life without realizing. Now that said, I think it's fair to say that Rey was never really challenged in this film. There's two occasions where Rey is bested by Kylo and both times proved to be not much of an issue. There's no real struggle, nothing she really has to overcome, and the only weakness she had was wanting to go back to Jakku. By the end of the movie, there isn't really anything Rey has to improve. Not saying she mustn't improve, I'm saying she doesn't have to. Rey in her amateur state is already good enough to defeat Kylo. So yeah, Rey is kind of a Mary Sue. Ish. But now the question is, why is that a problem? And the answer to that question is, it isn't. Whether or not Reyes and Mary Sue should never have been this big of a debate, because in the end, it doesn't matter. What does matter is when you watch the movie from beginning to end, what did it make you feel? Did you feel empowered? Did you feel like you were being seen? If so, why? Or maybe you felt ignored or even disrespected. If so, why? For me, I felt a few of those things, but I mostly felt like this film was trying to fix a problem by taking advice from random blue ticks on Twitter. Look, I ain't the one to pretend like Hollywood don't have a diversity problem, because it does. Even now, in big 2022, there are still issues. So I think it's great that some studios are actively trying to change that, because a problem don't get solved if a problem don't get addressed. But in their pursuit of being more inclusive, they also included a lot of subconscious racial and gender biases, and they didn't include any compelling characters. Finn, the stormtrooper who against all odds abandoned the First Order and helped Poe escape. That's really cool, but that's pretty much it. After that, Finn has no real effect on the overall story. His biggest contribution is that he tells them where Precinct 47 is. Then we got Poe Dameron, the ace pilot who isn't in large parts of the film, but honestly, probably had a much more interesting adventure off camera. Also, Kylo Ren, the badass bad guy who turned his back on his family to join the dark side, and then spends most of the movie being a whiny, incompetent bitch. Like, bro, nobody is scared of you. Nobody. Of all the new characters, in my opinion, the only one that was done well was General Hux. And yeah, I'm aware of how they do General Hux in the next movie. We're gonna have to talk about that in another video. But for now, the film is effectively a 2-hour and 21-minute prologue. It's not a complete story, and why would it be? At this point, it's clear these things come in threes. However, in this section of the story, not enough was done to give the new characters any real substance. So what we're left with is, it's okay. But that's what I think of Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens. What do you think of Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.